What kind of goat walks on its hind legs?
His name is Krampus.
Number 10. What the heck is the Krampus? What does he look like? Although Krampus has a ton of different variations from around the world, he's usually depicted as a hairy beast with hooves and horns of a goat. He has a long pointed tongue that rolls out of his mouth, and he has sharp looking fangs. Krampus carries around chains that symbolizes the devil, and he also has a basket full of birch branches. I'm not sure why. I mean, what does he use the birch for? Does he build stuff when he's bored? Well, we'll get into that a little bit later in this video. Krampus also has one human foot and one hooved foot, which actually makes me feel very uncomfortable. Krampus is an evil Christmas demon, and this takes us into number 9. So basically, Krampus is, the wicked version of Santa Claus. His main mission in life is to punish children and their parents if they're being naughty. And that's if they're disobedient or if they've lost their Christmas spirit. If the people that he captures and punishes do not feel any remorse, well, he will drag them to the underworld and they will never be seen or heard from again. So obviously something must have happened to this guy Krampus during his childhood, because why is he doing this? He wants people to be good and to believe in Christmas, but then he does it the wrong way. Maybe he didn't get the love he needed when he was a kid. Maybe he was on Santa's naughtiness and he didn't like being there. He didn't like every year getting coal. Although he probably had sick barbecues. Okay, there's more than just one evil Krampus lurking around, and the scary fact comes in at number 8. Many people believe that there is only one version of Krampus in all of the folklore, but they are sadly mistaken. Krampus is just one of many horned demons that can come snatch you and throw you into a sack for the night, especially if you haven't been nice this year. So make sure you guys are all being nice. So how many of these scary beasts are out there? Well, the legend doesn't say exactly. All I know is that none of us are safe, and you better hope that you were good this year, or else Krampus is going to be paying you an unpleasant visit. Number 7, we're talking about the Krampus Festival. A festival that you will never see this brown guy at. I mean, would you guys believe me if I told you guys in parts of Europe, drunk men will dress up as Krampus, come to your house, scare you to death, but then you're supposed to invite them in for a drink? Is this real life right now? I actually have the answer for this one. Yeah. I think it is. These men will dress up in Krampus costumes, and then they will go to a kid's bedroom window to basically scare the hell out of them, but then their parents will let them into the house, offer them a stiff drink. These drunken Krampus lookalikes will keep doing this all night until they have covered the entire town. Actually, you know what? I don't believe that this is real, but sometimes things get way out of hand, and they have been known to beat people in the streets with birch sticks. So if I were you, I would go into full purge mode. I'm not talking about going out there and killing all the Krampuses. I'm talking about boarding up your windows, lock your doors, and never answer the door for anyone on that night. Next up on our list, number 6. Where did he come from? Well, his name was derived from the German word Krampen, which means claw, and he is said to be the son of Hel in Norse mythology. Hel is a goddess who ruled the underworld, so it's pretty clear that Krampus has some evil blood running through his veins. It's believed that people created him as a way to scare their children into behaving. I mean, that would work on me. I'm not a dad yet, but couldn't we just use some positive reinforcements instead of threatening them with a demon? Krampus has been feared for many years, and children are scared of him to this day. Yeah, I wonder why. But you know what? He's so overly commercialized now, he might be starting to lose his edge. He's Santa's partner in crime, and this brings us to number 5. Okay, think of it this way. Krampus is Santa's right-hand man. It's kind of good cop, bad cop team, but they emotionally torture children. On Christmas Eve, Krampus actually rides shotgun with Santa, traveling from house to house, but for those unfortunate kids who are bad, instead of getting coal in their stocking, Krampus will slither down their chimney to punish and brutally beat them. And this all happens while Santa, well, he's still on the roof. He's patiently waiting up there, sipping on hot cocoa in his sleigh. So in a way, isn't Santa kinda evil too? He knows what's going on. He knows that these kids are being tortured, but he doesn't do anything to stop them. I guess that's the price they pay for not being good throughout the year. Next up on our list, and at number 4, he's part of a whole evil Christmas family. If you guys thought only Krampus and the Grinch were the evil monsters of Christmas, well, you'd be sadly mistaken. And that's because according to the Christmas lore, Krampus is surrounded by a big evil family made up of evil helper elves and also evil demon brothers and sisters. Apparently there are 13 demons that hang out with Krampus, and some of them are called the Door Slammer, the Window Peeper, the Sausage Snatcher, and the Doorway Sniffer. I have no idea who named these demons. Personally, I think their names need a lot of work, but don't be fooled. These demons are supposedly very evil, and they have the potential to mess you up. Krampus wreaks havoc on December 5th, not on Christmas Eve, and this takes us to number 3. In many of the horror films based off of the Krampus legend, he tends to wreak havoc on Christmas Eve, but that's not actually the case. In most of the legends, Krampus actually comes out on the night of December 5th, which is also known as Krampusnacht, or the eve of St. Nicholas Day. Kids will either leave a shoe or boot outside of their front door, and then the next day they will check to see if Krampus left them a present in their shoe for good behavior, or if they left them a rod for bad behavior. I'm pretty sure a rod is one of those like poking sticks that you poke fire with. But I don't even want to think about what Krampus is doing with that rod. Okay, he abducts wicked children, and this scary fact brings us to number 2. According to an old legend, Krampus lives in the realm of the dead, but once a year on December 5th, he is allowed to leave his depressing and gloomy home to travel out into the human worlds to capture and punish wicked children. In some stories, he steals children, torments them, or drags them to hell for the night. He is also known to stuff children into his sack, take them away to his lair, and torture them for hours and hours. So I guess the moral of the story is here, make sure that you guys are good, every single day of the year, because you might be paid a visit from the evil Krampus himself. Krampus punishments tackles its way on this list in at the number 1 spot. When it comes to punishments, Krampus doesn't go easy on his victims. First, he will resort to beating kids with birch rods and ripping their ears off. He will also rip out their pigtails and force them to beg for mercy. But some of his more brutal punishments include leading children off a cliff, putting them in shackles and baskets, throwing them into oncoming trains, or Krampus will drown them in ink and fish out the corpse with a pitchfork. Krampus is like the most savage version of the Grinch, but at least the Grinch had a heart.
Coming at number 10 now, we have the Whipping Father. In Belgium and France, there is an old legend around a man called Père Fouettard. The story goes back to the 12th century. This man spent his early years as an innkeeper, a kidnapper, and then a murderer. One day at the inn, 3 rich boys visited on their way to a religious boarding school. The man wanted their money, and so he kidnapped them and took them away to slit their throats. He then began to prepare them for some sort of human stew, but at the last moment, St. Nicholas himself showed up and resurrected the 3 boys. That's right, Santa himself saved the day. Seeing this power, the man then repented and became Santa's partner. His job was to whip the bad boys and girls on Santa's naughty list. That makes the naughty list about 1,000 times worse, I think. Alright, moving on to number 9 now, we have Krampus. Some of you guys may have seen the 2015 horror movie this one is based on. The story comes from southeastern Europe and dates back hundreds of years, and it's pretty terrifying. The Krampus is a horned half-goat, half-demon figure. At Christmas, he punishes children who have misbehaved. He would take children, beat and torture them before kidnapping them and taking them to his secret lair to just continue beating and torturing them. In modern times, there has been a bit of a movement to stop telling kids the story of Krampus because it scares them so much. Probably scares some of the adults too. Alright, moving on to number 8 now, we have the Yule Lads. These figures come from Icelandic folklore. There are 13 Yule Lads. They're the sons of mountain trolls who have a bit of a taste for the flesh of naughty children. The 13 of them harass and pull devilish pranks on people, making their lives a misery. Each one of them has a different job. One of them will steal your food, another will wait for you under your bed, another slams doors, while another simply watches you through windows. How creepy is that? For me though, perhaps the scariest one is the candle stealer. He follows children around so that he can steal their candles, leaving them in the dark. although in modern times I imagine he's figured out light switches. Okay, at the number 7 spot now we have Belsnickel. This story comes from southwestern Germany. Belsnickel is said to be a man who wears rugged furs and a mask. He has a long tongue and carries around a switch in his hand to beat naughty children with at Christmas. A switch is a piece of wood or some sticks that are usually used in beating punishments. He would have treats for the good children, but even then he would often beat them as they reached to grab the treats off the floor. I think I'd just pass on the treats altogether. Next up at number 6 now we have Frau Perchta. This is the German and Austrian story of a witch who visits people's homes during the 12 days after Christmas. She's known for being particularly hideous and also what she does when she visits people's homes. If a child has been good all year, they may receive a small gift, but if they have been bad, she would slit open the children's bellies, remove their stomach and guts, and stuff the hole with straw and pebbles. She would also do the same to anyone that ate something on her feast day other than fish and gruel. I don't even know where I get my hands on some gruel, so I might be screwed, but I'm also not a kid, so yay. Okay, at the number 5 spot now we have Hans Trapp. Hans is essentially the Christmas boogeyman in one part of France. He is said to be the anti-Santa, although he started out life as a normal man. He was rich, greedy, and all-round evil. He worshipped Satan and was then expelled from the Catholic Church because of it. Eventually, he was exiled to the forests and used to catch and eat children by posing as a scarecrow. One day, he was about to eat a boy he had captured, but was struck by lightning and killed as a punishment from God. That didn't stop him though, and he is still said to visit young children at Christmas dressed as a scarecrow to see how they've behaved. Alright, at the number 4 spot now we have La Befana. La Befana is an old Italian Christmas witch. Her story comes from Italian folklore that some say dates right back to Roman times. There are many origin stories for her, but one of the stranger ones says she wasn't always a witch. She used to be just an ordinary woman with a child who she loved with all her heart. Tragically, her child died, and the grief sent Befana crazy. She heard the news that Jesus had been born though, and so she set out to look for him, thinking that he was actually her son. She found him and gave him gifts. In return, Jesus gave her the gift of being the mother to every child in Italy and to give them gifts at Christmas. So if you're ever in Italy on Christmas Eve and catch sight of a broom, say hi to the witch. Next up at number 3 now we have Marry Lwyd. This tradition originates from South Wales in the UK and involves a zombie horse. Yes, Marie is a zombie horse. Marie would rise from the dead at Christmas and wander the streets with human zombies to remind the living of their existence. Marie wants to get into people's houses, and the only way to keep her out would be to engage her in a battle of wits through rhyming. That's right, to stop this skeletal zombie horse from entering your home at Christmas, you basically have to rap battle it. If that doesn't sound like a terrifying nightmare, I don't know what does. Alright, at the number 2 spot now we have Stragelli. Stragelli is the sort of demonic looking helper to Perchta the witch, someone we talked about earlier in the video. You might wonder how Perchta manages to slice open all those naughty kids. Well, Stragelli helps. He will go around and eat the offerings left out by people in the hope of Perchta's blessing. If he comes across any naughty kids before Perchta does, he will rob them of everything they own, throw them up into the air, and then tear them into pieces. That makes Perchta's belly slitting almost seem normal, except not really. None of this seems normal. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Yule Cat. If you guys remember the Yule Lads from earlier on in the video, well, this is their cat that they bring along with them to terrorize people at Christmas. The Yule Cat is big and fearsome, exactly what you'd expect when its owners are child-eating mountain trolls. Unlike many of the other ones on our list, you can't reason with the Yule Cat. There is only one thing a child can do at Christmas to not be visited by the Yule Cat. The cat is said to eat children who do not receive any clothes at Christmas. So guys, just be thankful next time you get some socks from a relative. They may have just saved your life from the Yule Cat.
Alright, and starting us off at number 10 we have Gryla. This is this Icelandic lady as the holiday version of the witch from Hansel and Gretel, who lives in the gingerbread house and eats children.
Except her house is a cave and she's a giant and has superpowers to sniff out bad kids on the naughty list in nearby towns before kidnapping them and making them into stew. Next up on this list is number 9.
He roamed at large, hungry and evil, in the freezing Yule snow. In every home, people shuddered at his name. If one heard a pitiful meow, something evil would happen soon.
Okay, so if Gryla wasn't creepy enough for you guys, so we got her cat. The Yule Cat is up next.
The legend goes back and forth on this one, with some saying that the cat stalks prey who are wearing old clothes on Christmas Eve, as opposed to new clothes that the wool farmers had forced their employees into making.
So this cat was seemingly used as a scare tactic for slave labor around the holiday.
Other legends say this cat simply ate other people's food. But back in the day, when these legends were a very real part of society, that still wasn't ideal either because, well, food wasn't as plentiful and available as it is today. Next up at number 8, we have the Yule Lads.
According to Icelandic legend, the Yule Lads are the 13 sons of the mountain trolls, Grýla and her lazy husband.
This one is creepy in essence, but I'm getting a real 7 dwarves vibe. So the 13 Yule Lads were kind of like Santa's little helpers, full of mischief and named accordingly. But here's where it goes south. Get it? South Pole, not North Pole. But anyways, back to what I'm saying, Santa, or Snow White in this case, is Gryla, and that's their mother. Many legends say that they also eat children. Others say they just wreak havoc on them in evil, mischievous ways.
Next up, number 7.
Frau Perchta. Frau Perchta, though largely unknown in the West, holds deep roots embedded in the folklore of Eastern Europe tradition, a reputation as the Witch of Christmas.
Care to flip a coin for your Christmas fates? Psh, I know I would. You got a 50-50 chance. Well, that's kind of what Eastern European kids did with this next monster. Frau Perchta, the monster we're talking about right now, or Berthcha, well, she would leave a coin in a child's shoe if they were a good kid. The flip side to this, however, is the naughty list. Well, what happens on the naughty list, you ask? Well, this is where it gets really awful. The monster is said to slice open the abdomen and take out what's there and replace it with straw and pebbles. It's called the Feast of Epiphany. More inspiration for classic Disney movies begins with this story. Frau Perchta is either presented as a beautiful young lady or a wicked old hag with a large foot. There's evidence that suggests that she is a shapeshifter. I could be her right now.
Alright, moving on, number 6, we have Santa's evil twin.
Anti-Claus, as the name would suggest, is the evil doppelganger of the ever-beloved Christmas father figure, otherwise known as Santa Claus.
He's up next on the list, and he goes by the name of Père Fouettard.
Actually goes by a couple different names as he translates into Father Whipper. Although it's kind of weird because it has nothing to do with the legend of this creepy, dark Santa.
As it goes, he was an innkeeper who murdered 3 boys, and when Saint Nicholas, aka Santa, found out, he resurrected the boys back to life and condemned old Pierre to a life of repenting his sins.
But Santa brings him out annually on St. Nicholas Day to handle the kids on the naughty list with his whip. And moving right along, number 5, speaking of switches, this next Christmas creep uses them too.
And what's more, he is said to be a pal of old Saint Nick as well.
Belsnickel originated in Germany but has gained popularity in North America.
This unkempt troll-looking monster visits kiddos in the weeks leading up to Christmas Day, and visits to see who is naughty and nice so he can whip them into shape, literally.
Well, you know what? This guy doesn't discriminate, and I think this year I am on the naughty list.
And at number 4, we have Krampus. Okay, so while there are some classic Christmas monsters that didn't make this list, like the Grinch, we couldn't not put Krampus on here.
But he's sliding in at number 4. If you don't know who Krampus is, I don't know where you've been living. I suggest you put it on your Christmas movie list this year. You should be watching it right after you watch our video, and watch it right after you watch Home Alone.
Krampus means claw and is one of the more famous Christmas monsters to date.
This guy is half goat and half demon, and this thing punishes the naughty kids, and he'll punish them in any tragic or horrifying way he can, including drowning them, eating them, or just sending them to hell. And I can't forget about whipping kids, because every
monster on this list just
yeah, let's just result to
Oh man.
And coming in at number 3, the Tomten is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde style like gnome that is said to possess human-like strength. He is said to kill livestock, give a hellish beating, another monster beating kids, and even kill you with his poisonous bite after driving you absolutely insane. Well, you know what? Although I just listed all those things, he's not that bad though. He will literally protect your house if he likes you, and of course, if you treat him well, he'll treat you well.
And now at number 2. Some of you may have seen the cult classic film Gremlins, which is widely regarded as a Christmas movie because the film takes place at Christmas time, when a father buys his son a pet named Mogwai, which means monster in Cantonese, from a shop in Chinatown. Pretty sure this movie is where the inspiration for the 90s toy Furby came from, because they look identical, and they're both super creepy. That is, of course, unless you get them wet or feed them after midnight, which is exactly what happened in this movie. Well, let's rewind. This film was actually based off of an old folklore, and even got more popular in World War II when the government used advertisements to warn people of malfunctions in aircrafts and blaming these creatures for causing them.
And finally, at number 1, the Grither. I feel like we should be bleeping out this guy's name because, as the legend has it, he doesn't like hearing it out loud. So why did I just say it?
Whoops! The lives on the other side of Santa's workshop in an old abandoned ship.
So the his hands are as big as basketballs and his arms the length of massive snakes.
The veins are pumped with fear and anger, not blood, and he hates being cold and wet, which is exactly what you would think an abandoned Arctic ship in the North Pole would feel like.
So every time the hears its name, it grows its ears double the size, eventually growing so large that the can fly like Dumbo.
This is only a tale though, and anyone that can actually verify the has been eaten